Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on Fat Burning Man, where we help you look, feel, and perform at your best. Can being athletic help you be a better singer and artist? Conversely, could dancing make you a better athlete? Oftentimes, people tend to compartmentalize their lives and don't make the connection between art, athletics, mindset, and overall health. But when we take a more holistic view of our lives and our health, we start to realize how interconnected all of this is. Joining me on the show today, I'm very excited to say, is my good friend, Mr. David Smith. David is a coach, competitive athlete, Dartmouth and Harvard alum, artist, singer, super freak of a man, and I mean that in a good way, and dear old friend. If you stay on until the end of this episode, you can even hear a clip of us singing together on a long-lost Abel James album from years ago. But before we get to all of that, here's a review for the Wild Diet that came in from Nellie on Amazon. She says, 2 80-year-olds are full and 6 pounds down the first week. I am 81 and my husband is 84. We have lost 5 to 6 pounds in 9 days with no exercise. Solid weight loss, not water. Yes, I have to cook, but I do easy stuff. Dad's favorite is a bag of cooked shrimp with 2 bags of frozen veggies and a box of organic chicken broth for the liquid cooked down for an hour. Yes, I have to spend more money on organic food, but we save money on not buying any processed or junk food. We feel great and have thoroughly enjoyed Abel's writing style. We can see why this is becoming the only diet book you need. We took one of his options and decided to fast 18-6. All that means is we skip breakfast and no longer eat after supper. Simple. Not hard because you can eat all the protein and veggies that you want during your meal, and don't forget some oil or butter. Easy? Yes, if you want to be. I told Dad that if he lost 5 pounds the first week, I would make Abel's carrot cake and Allison's coffee cake from the book. All the recipes are delicious and quite easy. Today, I'm baking the carrot cake. Good eating, solid old-fashioned food, no preservatives, all organic, and even recipes for our 14-year-old dog. Yay, to your health, from Nellie. Nellie, that just warms my heart in such an incredible way. It's rare that I get notes like this. I mean, you two are doing it. And, so many people make up excuses for why not to, eat their veggies or cook again. And I'm glad that you're simplifying things because that's really what it's all about. And imagine, not eating that breakfast means you don't have to prepare. It means that you don't have to take the time to actually eat it. You don't have to take the time to clean up after it either. So, you're right. A lot of people wind up saving some amount of time and money in various ways. You'll find out how to do that over the course of time, and maybe your dog will even love it too. So, Nellie, thank you so much. Congrats to you and your husband. Keep it up, and also keep me updated. Now, if you're listening out there and you'd like to get in touch, then please drop me a line on social media, but even better, at fatburningman.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, put in your best email, and reply to the email that I'll send to you with a bunch of free goodies and all that. And I read everything that people send my way. I can't obviously respond to everything, but I really very much appreciate it. Now, for anyone who's listening, and they're wondering about that carrot cake, it's a very tasty dessert, totally worth sharing with your family and friends who aren't afraid of vegetables. You can find the recipe for free at fatburningman.com. Just type in carrot to the search bar, or type in something else that you like, another ingredient, because we have hundreds of videos, we have hundreds of recipes, workouts, and other things like that, all for free at fatburningman.com. So don't forget to check that out. And by the way, we recently, I'm very excited about this, became our own sponsor. And to celebrate, we're giving listeners like you a deal on our brand new goodies from Wild Superfoods. So right now you can save over $128 off your purchase of our Ultimate Daily Bundle by selecting Subscribe and Save. So you'll get all the health-boosting goodies of Future Greens, Mega Omegas, Vitamin D Stack, and Probiotic Spheres delivered straight to your doorstep each month. Just head on over to wildsuperfoods.com/save128 Save 128 to get the deal. And to get all the latest updates, discounts, news, and information, just be sure to sign up for that newsletter over at fatburningman.com. As a bonus, I'll send you a 7-day meal plan and a quick start guide so you can get rolling right away. All right, on to the show with my buddy, David Smith. You're about to learn how being athletic could help you be a better singer and artist, meditative aspects of creative or physical work, what it's like to compete on a national and international level, how to recover from serious injury, and tons more. All right, let's go hang out with David. All right, folks, David Smith is a coach, competitive athlete, Dartmouth and Harvard alum, artist, singer, and dear old friend. He's, and I don't say this lightly, one of the most talented people I know, and I don't get to see him often enough. So, Dave, thank you so much for being here. This is going to be awesome.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you for having me, Abel. This is great.
You are officially the first Dartmouth Air on the show. Rick Silverman, way back in the day, was on the blog because he's so ripped. But congratulations, good sir.
Let it be known that that is a fact.
Rick Silverman might still be more ripped than you, though.
Oh, by a factor of 20.
We'll see at reunion.
Yeah.
But let's talk about let's talk about that. Let's start with a multi-talented thing, because going back to college, just for the listeners' benefit, we were in the same singing group, the Dartmouth Airs, together, which was kind of like a semi-pro / pro singing group. We practiced a lot for, let's see, it was usually at least 3 2-hour practices a week. We had usually at least a couple of gigs on the weekend, sometimes 4 in a day when we were on tour. In addition to that, you were rowing like crazy in college. Oh, going to an Ivy League school, getting good enough grades to get into Harvard grad school. You're doing all these things at the same time. And not to mention, like, as a soloist, you're a great soloist and performer, singer. You played piano in one of my bands for the Fellowship Project. You're all over the place. Most people would say this guy's a freak, screw him, he's just gifted or something. But could you explain maybe a little bit of how you see these different modalities and these different things that you do really nurturing each other?
Yeah. First of all, those are really nice things to say about me. That's very generous. And the way that I felt, I want to start with the Dartmouth Airs specifically. So I was one of the kids who was a little bit of a Dartmouth Airs nerd coming in. Yeah. So myself and a couple of people that we know together. Yeah. We already had the CDs. You know, we were listening to the
so
CDs, and like some of them were listening to him, thinking, you know, like I'm thinking one of your classmates in particular. You know, he told me at one point he showed up and he knew, I think it was Zebo, right? He knew all the parts already. Yeah. I showed up being like, well, I'm going to try out for one of these a cappella groups, but probably not the Airs because I'm not really like good enough to get in. and by some miracle, like I feel like that year I was like I feel like I just barely slipped in there, and it was a life-changing experience. And from that first moment of being allowed to kind of join you guys, I thought like, well, okay, like I better raise my game to kind of honor the group. And when it came to rowing in college, rowing for my coach, Steve Perry at Dartmouth, like that was how I felt about that too, was like, you know, it's not like I did have like a human body and it could do some things, but, you know, I wasn't like recruited heavily by a bunch of different schools or anything. Mm-hmm. I just knew that I really loved to do it, and it really helped me feel better about everything. And then secondly, the best way that you can sort of honor the team and your teammates is to just show up and like just work your butt off and just really give it everything you have. Yeah. You know, the other guys in the Airs, the other people on our rowing team, I think they helped me mature. You know, they were helping me raise my game and showing me, you know, in the Airs, I think a lot of like my music tastes, and then more from playing in that band with you, which again, you know, you were the one who invited me and said like, hey dude, like you play piano a little bit, you can do some backup singing, like come out for this, let's do this. And, you know, I still have like the album that you did. I mean, that thing is amazing. You know, I still listen to it. And I guess just like with all this stuff, I don't see it as like, oh, these things are in competition and doing one thing takes away from another thing. But the way that, I mean, to think back to college again, it was like, 10 years ago now, but the way I would kind of rationalize it to myself or to the heirs was like, well, with the rowing thing, at least at that point, it wouldn't really do that justice to give it like 98%. Like you had to a little bit be all in, you can't just miss races. Like the coach would have just said, you're out of here.
Right.
But with the heirs, it's like, I knew that I could miss a couple concerts. I could miss a tour. And like, yeah, some people would be bummed and I'd be bummed, but you guys would be just fine. You'd be just fine without me. When it comes to the rowing, you've got the boat with 9 people in it, 8 rowers plus coxswain. You can't just have like a seat be empty there. And you can't just slot somebody else in and say it's going to be just as good, because there's a pretty delicate, like we weren't that good of a team. We didn't just have infinitely replaceable people. So yeah.
Whereas the heirs can always get another 10 or 2 just off the street someplace.
Like the generic, the middle, somewhere in the middle.
No, but I think some of the emotional things that went along with that, I kind of experienced before you did to some degree, even in that group. And let's talk about the group that we shared, the singing group and performance group, because and this continues to happen in adulthood too. This is why I bring it up, is if you are also an athlete and an artist, then those things are somehow at odds with each other in terms of the other people in those groups, right? So like the artists will not like your other friends, right? It's kind of like being in elementary school, and there's like your elementary school best friend, and then your best friend has his camp friend, because every summer he goes to camp, and that's different. And so there are these things that are at odds with each other, whether it's CrossFit and like your work group, your community there, or whether it's, rowing and then some other group that you may be in, your family that doesn't agree with it, or you're out rowing too much or whatever. How do you deal with other people, I guess, putting their beliefs on you in those instances?
You said it the perfect way. It's not that if you have a lot of things, kind of multiple plates spinning at the same time, I think that anybody who operates in that way sort of implicitly understands that it's an inclusive thing. It's not a trying to push people away and drive them away. And if there is sort of tensions, then unfortunately it falls to you. It's your responsibility to kind of diffuse those. Something that comes up a lot of the time is, and I hear this at Pocock Rowing Center, which is where I've been coaching for the past couple of years. It all started when my former supervisor came up to me. I was alone on the ergometer, and she asked me, "Hey, David, how's it going? What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just doing steady state, just kind of like long, slow distance training." And she was like, "Oh, yeah, good." I was like, "Oh, do you need me to get out of the way? The junior girls are practicing soon." She goes, No, you're fine. You're fine." Takes like 2 steps in the other direction. I go back to, plugging away. And then she whips around and looks me right in the eyes and goes, "No, but what are you doing, like in life?" And she said it exactly like that. I said, "Oh, same answer, steady state." I was like, "I'm steady state erging? I don't really know." I had just moved back to Seattle. I'd been a total vagabond for like 7 straight years.
Wow.
And I just like moved back with my girlfriend, didn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
And she was like, "I want you to coach our men's masters team." And I was like, "Oh, like, yeah, like I'll help out." And she was like, No, I want you to be the head coach of our men's masters team. And I was like, "Well, I don't have any real coaching experience." She was like, "No, that doesn't matter." And basically the next day hired me sight unseen and just kind of like trusted me to go off and do it. And a year or 2 later, we had like 34 guys. And we'd started with like 1 or 2. And it just kind of, yeah, but that's just, that's one example of like, I get a couple of questions at the boathouse. People are like, "Oh, I've heard this a lot and I want to just put it to bed." People say, "Oh, I watch you out there. I could never do what you do." And it's like, no, you can. Like, you're learning to row. Mm-hmm. I'm learning to row. It's not like there's different levels with hard edges. Like we're just bringing ourselves up But I think you touch on that kind of performance piece, especially with the airs. And this is why I said that I was so lucky just to get in at all. It's like the threshold to get in that group was very high. Like you have to you have to have put in a certain amount of work and a certain amount of like singing fitness, whatever you want to call it. So I guess that's my point, is that like it's got to be this inclusive thing in the same way that, you know, she recognized in me, this former supervisor of mine. She was like, well, it doesn't really matter that you haven't exactly coached before. You know, she was saying like, I trust you to take something that you haven't done before and just throw yourself at it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that really answers the question at all, but.
Well, it does, because you have to. Okay, so let's go into this a little bit. You are resisting the norms of adult American society, big time, in all sorts of different ways. I read something just yesterday. I don't recall exactly what the number is now. It's like 65-70% of us are overweight or obese right now. By 2030, it's going to be 85%. I'm like, what? 85? Yeah. So you're for people who are just listening to this, you're still in great shape, in excellent shape. You're not following those norms. How have you been able to follow a different path, and what does that look like for you? It's not always easy, right? It's not always tons of money and just like tons of cars and cool stuff and whatever. It's a different type of adulthood, right?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I own multiple Ferraris. No. Again, for anyone listening, this is no Ferraris. I do have one Subaru. No, it's something that, again, if you want to keep going, especially with any kind of a passion that involves your body, whether it's like singing or yoga, right? Because singing is also a muscle. It's also something to work out. You know, I got to admit, dude, I'm a little bit badly out of practice in terms of the piano playing and the singing. I had some people over the other night, and we just sounded bad. And
old man tenor now.
I knew it sounded bad because I caught up with a friend at his birthday last weekend, and he was like, and I was like, oh yeah, I play the piano, and he was like, dude, you're not that good though. And I was like, you're actually right. No, but with the rowing thing, like, to use a concrete example, like, I mean, even just this week, so I raced at the head of the Charles 2 days ago. But last Tuesday, so a week ago, unfortunately, I had been flying a little close to the sun, and I had kind of like a back spasm thing flare up. I knew how to take care of it, you know, rested it, heated it, iced it. But, you know, as we're getting a little bit older, if you want to push your body to the limit, it's no longer sufficient to just, you know, show up like we did in college on little sleep, maybe a little hungover and a little smelly from the night before, and you just kind of show up and wing it and bat. You know, you're in a war with your body. You're kind of like reaching down inside yourself and pulling something out instead of saying like, well, I'm gonna do all the things, like I'm gonna stretch, roll, I'm gonna get my fascia loose. And I think that only in the last 2 or 3 years, kind of since going off a little bit and doing my own thing and applying my own ideas, have I understood how wonderful it is to be in the human body, like to understand it a little better, to explore a little bit less conventional training methods. Like I used to really prioritize weightlifting and just get in the gym, and I was very concerned with like how much I'm deadlifting. Yeah. Now I'm more concerned with like, what's my hip mobility like? Because I know that in the boat, if my hip mobility is a couple degrees off, it means that my lower back's going to get tight. It means that I'm not going to be able to compress at the catch, at the front part of the rowing stroke. Now we are compounding that every stroke down the course, and I'm getting a little bit less distance per stroke. I'm going less fast overall, and I'm working harder to do it. It's kind of this sort of thing. And nobody cares if you show up to a race and you're like, hey, I deadlifted 350 pounds. They're going to be like, that's cool. I'm nice and loose, and I'm 23. I'm going to kick your butt. No, and it's interesting to see too, like, you know, at Worlds this past summer, I was at the World Championships, and of all I've been doing that since 2012 was the first time I was there. And showing up then, I felt like I am the shortest, weakest, not good at rowing, most totally terrified and least experienced person here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so in over my head in every way to like every single other athlete at this thing. Thank God the other guys in my boat are just legends, like living legends. Like Bousey goes, if you're a rower listening to this, 616 on his 2K weighing 141 pounds, which if you extrapolate that like watts per body weight, VO2 max, cyclist crunching numbers, is just sort of unprecedented in rowing. Like, I've actually never heard of anybody else going that fast being that light. I mean, that's like
his own boat.
Yeah, Shane Madden, if you're listening. Yeah, exactly. Like he was like toured. Like Shane was so fit that he could just like row. Again, apologies. He would row a little rough and ready, and you could feel him kind of like bring the boat a bit to a stop and then just rocket it forward and a bit to a stop and rocket it forward. And Stroke Seat and I at the time, we were discussing and we were like, the problem with Shane's technique at that time, he got a lot smoother over the summer and he's phenomenally skilled. We were like, the problem with his technique is that he doesn't get tired. We row like that, we get tired. We're mortal.
Yeah.
He has this engine where he's able to just like bam, bam, bam. But even he and I, he's one of my best friends now, and we met that summer 6 years ago, and we talk about this stuff all the time about like how tight we get and how we gotta roll out and all this other kind of stuff. But I guess I have to also thank my parents. I'm an only child, and they kind of raised me when I was a very young kid. I was always kind of a shy kid doing my own thing, mostly doing drawing, doing art. And they always really encouraged that and didn't say like, oh, you have to go and be one of the popular kids. It was more like, no, do your thing, do your art, and I found that was kind of my way to relate to people. Instead of saying like, hi, it's me, was like, hey, this is like a drawing I did, this is what I did. And they always kind of understood that. And that's where I could kind of feel like, oh, there are friendships here. And there's one other person I want to mention who, so probably more than anyone else, this guy helped me reconcile these two worlds. There's 2 or 3 or 4 of them, but in grad school, so after college, I went to the Harvard architecture school, and myself and a couple other of my, I didn't know it at the time, best friends were there. So there's Hans Baumann, Max Schneider, and Paula Sturla, and also Aiden Ackerman. And basically Max in particular, Hans, I mean, all of them, but let's just use Max as an example. This guy like listened to speed metal on his headphones so loud at his desk while like cutting models, while building these architecture models.
Yeah.
I felt like I was listening to something at full volume here. He was constantly being told to turn his music down, but he'd make these precise, beautiful, amazing models. And between him and Hans and Aiden, they'd be like, dude, why do you look so fit? What do you do? Why are you always showing up sweaty and stinky in class? And I was like, oh, I didn't really want to tell any of you guys, but like, yeah, I row at 5 a.m. every morning. And they were like, what does that mean? And I was like, it means like I'm out in the water, like grinding away in the dark with like my friends, and like we're trying to like win races. And they were like, what? You're insane. Why are you doing that and this? But they weren't like, oh, stop doing that. They were like, yes, dude, you have to do it so hard, and like they'd come cheer me on at the head of the Charles, and they were always supportive. Like, and they understood that if you want to, whatever, self-actualize or be complete, like if you love doing something, just go do it. And it doesn't even matter if like you're necessarily like good at it or not, but like if you really love it and you keep doing it, all of a sudden you'll look around and you'll accidentally be good at it. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of an experience that I had at Worlds this year, in 2018. This year, I to the credit of my pair partner, Tom Foster, our coach, Clive, both of them had helped. We'd all helped each other so much. And it's just like, I showed up at Worlds and I was like, wow, in the space that we had and the time that we had, we did everything we could. Tom's doing everything he can. I'm doing everything we can. And it was like just that feeling of readiness is something that you can't fake, you can't like sports psychology yourself into. And we talked about this way back in college. It's something that literally starts like in your physical body and then spreads outward. And if you're in some kind of a war with yourself, or if you're sort of proving something to yourself, or if you go in with self-doubts about like, man, should I be doing this? Is this worthwhile? It just won't work. Anyway, long answer.
Let me ask you, what's the difference between you in college when you were not a coach and you now, not a spring chicken anymore, but still racing and now a coach? Like, what is the difference in the way that you row, generally speaking?
That's a great question. So in college, I think a lot of it is the coach's task is to bring the boat up to speed as quickly as possible. Like one of the things that Steve Perry did so well with us was we didn't waste a second at practice. Like he said, I want you guys to come down. Practice starts at 4. That means you're there at 3:30. You're warming up by 3:40. You're in the bays at 3:55. Like if you're in the bays at 4, you're late. Your boat's not going out. You're sent home. That's it. And you know, with a couple initial mishaps, like everybody got on that page really, really quickly. And we just killed ourselves on the water. I mean, we were out there. Steve was just talking at us constantly about technique, power, mentality. Like it was extremely, extremely intense practice
and learning.
And at the same time, he said, the second we're done, we put the boats away on the racks. When you shower and change, you can be talking about practice and how it went. He's like, but when that door clicks shut at the boathouse behind you, I want you to just like go stupid and forget you are a rower at all, and spend the rest of the 22 hours of your day just being a college student at college.
That is cool advice. You don't hear that very often.
Actually, so Steve had me out this year very generously to his program that he's coaching now in Dallas, and we got to talk and catch up a bit, and it was interesting to hear his take on, well, what was he going for with that, you know, because that was however many decade ago. And he was like, you know, I said that specifically for you. I said that so that you would just chill. He's like, because otherwise you'd be thinking about it and trying to row the boat and get faster just 24 hours a day. You would not turn off. And I was like, well, that was exactly what I needed to hear. And you know, because a lot of the way that even so even within those practices, I wasn't there thinking about how do I be efficient? How do I save energy? How do I like calm down? I was thinking like, how do I do exactly what Steve is asking? How do I get more out of myself? Like I'm like a sponge. Is there any way that I can squeeze like a last drop of soapy water, you know, out of myself? Is there any shred of energy that's being left on the table today? And then, you know, because we're in college and we're invincible, go to bed, wake up sore and tired, and do it the same the next day. I don't think that that's a sustainable model forever. Yeah. But part of why that was so smart and why it worked, like I said, is like we had such a short season. I mean, we had, yes, like you train year round for crew, but like we're not thinking like, oh, we have the Olympics in 8 years or something. We're thinking like we want to win this spring. Yeah. You know, and we only have like 5-6 practices a week to do it. The coach also has to sort out like who's going to be in what boat. He's got to teach us to row. There's a checklist of things that's actually pretty long, and there's like only a couple 100 days tops where you have those chances to do it. So we tried to really work things up to just a fever pitch in practice and just have a blast. So that by the time we'd go into races, and this is where I really loved it, at races I felt supremely calm because I knew that we would just show up and do. There was nothing we were going to do in a race that we hadn't done hundreds, if not thousands of times before. Yeah. Not exaggerating that. Like literally, like when it came to the execution of the race, it was just that. It was like almost like routine and boring a little bit. And you could get excited with it, but like there was no need to pump yourself up. I think now, again, kind of for better or worse, I'm a little bit turned loose, right? I don't usually work with a coach. I get to express my own ideas, and I get to kind of take the training as it comes and be realistic, throw in rest days when I need to. You know, like, here's an example. Left to my own devices, preparing for the Charles, apparently I'll spread myself a little too thin, and you know, I still raced. It went okay, but man, I just wish I'd had somebody there to be like, Dave, you need to like back off a little bit. You need to chill. But there's been other times when it's been really, really rewarding and fun. And when, you know, I've been able to, like, for example, one summer, this was 2 years ago in 2016. So I saw that there were a couple of my contemporaries who had basically petitioned to go to a World Cup. So in rowing, you got the World Cups, those lead up to the World Championships. There's nothing in it. Like, you don't, like, it's just another opportunity to race in Europe and go fast, have fun, go to Lucerne, do whatever. I've never been to one of those events. Seems like it's a hell of a lot of fun. Sort of, you know, also a good time in Europe, right? It's like a little mini vacation for some of these crews. I heard that a couple of my contemporaries had just sort of like sent themselves in the singles and had done okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? How come I don't get to do that? I was like, I'm here at Pocock alone, just like, and so I was like, you know what? At the same time, I'd read this great book. If you're a rower listening, you got to read the book that the Kiwi pair came out with. These two guys, Eric Murray and Hamish Bond from New Zealand, game changers. Surprisingly few of my rowing contemporaries have actually read their book, but they have a book called The Kiwi Pair. It's amazing. And, you know, you always read the books of or the words of your heroes looking for some kind of secret. There isn't any.
Yeah.
And their secret was a lot of hard work. Just a lot. Like, we're talking like,
there's a humdinger.
Like 30-kilometer rows twice a day,
wow.
Every day for like a long time. So I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm all fired up. I got back actually from, I think it might have been the reunion. I think
really?
We actually saw each other. Or no. That was years ago. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. So I get back from, no, it was a wedding of Hans. It was Hans's wedding where I saw those two grad school buddies of mine, Hans and Max. I saw them together and we kind of shared ideas. Came back to Pocock and I didn't even get in the boat because I was like, step one, I got to be fit. I was like, if I'm gonna take myself seriously, I need to be like world-class fit. I know I'm not. So I put myself in ergatory. So I got on the Concept 2 rowing ergometer.
Yeah.
Set it up for 12 kilometers. Cranked that down. It took like 5 minutes. You know, drank a whole bottle of Gatorade. Set it up for 12K again. Cranked that down. And then did that twice a day for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
Rowing about, you know, and then gradually kind of fed back in the rowing. But I came out of that, and at the end of the summer, went off to Canadian Henley, which is this really fun race. I would encourage, again, any rowers listening, if you're thinking about doing Canadian Henley and you haven't, find a trailer, find a boat, get yourself out there. It's so fun. It's a great race. And I ended up like in really generous conditions, like a big tailwind, big tail breeze, ended up going faster for me in my little single than I ever had before by like, you know, like 10 seconds or something. Like I'd only ever done like 7:10, and ended up getting to go 6:58. And at least for rowing, just again, for the non-rowers, like even though Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile years and years ago, if you can crank out a sub 4-minute mile, like that's pretty legit.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the pinnacle of the sport. Like right. I think the world record for the lightweight single is like 6:41 set this year. So I'm not that level. Like I'm not close to that, but I did.
But you're seconds away.
7. Yeah, but like, it's still a huge gap. But for me that day, and I guess that was an interesting thing because I was so nervous for that race. Like I was a wreck. Oh yeah, like I didn't think that would happen at all. But I just put my head down and did my thing, and it was just a totally different way of racing than in college, where it was like we were racing and beating ourselves up so much that you just show up and do your thing. So
the practicing was more the racing back in the day, or you practiced like you raced? I guess I'm trying to dig in a little bit. Yeah.
So back in the day in college, we were always competing in practice. Like every single day was competitive. There was no like, oh, go out and do an easy cross training day. If we were cross training, it would mean like laps of lunges. So we'd get 2 guys across the whole team deep, right? And we would sort of lunge, stand up, lunge with the next leg forward, but it had to be the whole team in time.
Okay.
So we're all, doing this. And if somebody got out of time, the whole team had to start that lap over. And we would do like 10 laps of the track and field up at Leverone or whatever. So that's not cross training in the sense of like if you're a triathlete or something and you're going for like an easy bike ride. No, this was like, we're going to find a way to hurt our legs.
Yeah.
We're going to find a way to like make ourselves mentally and physically more prepared. Even at the time, like Steve, our coach, the mastermind of this stuff, he would tell us to our faces as we were doing it. He'd be like, this isn't going to make you better at rowing. We were like, yeah, like we're into it,
awesome.
We were into it. Because you realized the reason we did it was if you're in college, the only rowing you've done, if any, either you haven't done any because you're a walk-on, or you've done another sport, or you rowed in high school and you think you're the big dog, but actually you stink because you rowed in high school. Like, you're not that good. Like, you're okay. Like, but it's still high school crew. If any of the junior rowers that I coached are listening to this, they'll know that I told them over and over this past year. It's like, guys, don't be intimidated by the competition because I'm not. Like, I look at all you guys, I look at the best junior crew in the world and I think like, yeah, it's junior crew. It just looks, it doesn't look like, oh my God, that's incredible. That's amazing. Because in crew, like there is a real performance level difference between like, like high school crew up to college. Like even some of the slower college teams are still like, they're way above the fastest high school teams. You're just bigger, stronger, more capable. But anyways, so we're out there and, what you realize by doing something like laps of lunges, right? Especially you've never done it before, right? You're just a total green, kiddo. You have no idea what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. Something that Steve would say to us a lot. And so you get like a first lap in and your legs are just on fire.
Yeah.
And you get to the second lap in and you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to continue. But you don't actually get to the point of failure. Like never once, even did like the least strong guy on the team, like just totally collapse and not be able to continue. Like, like it stinks. It's really hard. Your legs are on fire. But you get to like this point where it's like your body and mind are telling you it can't continue, but it totally can.
Right.
And then you can bring that knowledge, that sort of self-knowledge into the boat when you're coming up at halfway to the race and you have all these feedbacks from your legs telling you, oh, you can't continue, or you're right about to not be able to continue. And you can say from here down, you're like, no, I'm actually good. Like, this is right where I want to be. Yeah. And you're sort of into it and it's exciting. It's an exciting feeling rather than it's familiar, fearful. So that's,
And so that's something that you kind of need to go through to know about, right? You really need that experience to some degree.
You absolutely need it. You absolutely need it. And not only that, I think that as you age, you still do need a little bit of that, but you definitely don't need as much.
Right.
Like, but yeah, like you do not want to be coming up in your athletic career and be thinking too sort of cautiously.
Yeah.
And not explore. Like, I think you really should explore your limits. But unfortunately, as we get a little bit on in our years, if we explore our limits like every day, you're looking at being hurt.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because you were talking about how like a weakness kind of turns into an advantage. And I think that's definitely true for me in health because it was like right after college. In college, actually, my health was like starting to falter a little bit. And then after, I started getting fat and sick before a lot of my friends did. And that's what made me more conscious of what was happening. So like you said, that beast who's just going like rough and strong and bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, just do it. Ugh.
I'm glad that I didn't have that, just like a body that could put up with anything and I can eat anything and I'll always be healthy and whatever, because it is. And I think maybe that's one of the things that comes with experience or advancing age or what have you, is you start to appreciate that feedback that you grew up ignoring, right? Like go harder, go harder, go harder. I'm going to get to wherever that is. But as time goes on, you realize, oh, this is supposed to be in balance, all of this, right? Like, because if I get hurt, that's a big problem, right? And being a runner back in the day, if I got hurt, I would have to take weeks off and get slow again. It's the worst.
No, it's like you could be in a bike race and fall and crash and like, have some road burn, but like conceivably still win the race. If you're a runner and you hurt your leg, if you're a rower and you hurt your back, like there's no way to just like baby it and not use it. Like you could be in a field sport and do something to your wrist, and kind of work through it and work with it. Like you look at many professional athletes, right? They have the kinesio tape all over, and you see a remarkable number of not even necessarily more mature athletes, but sometimes the less mature athletes at the world championships, they'll have the kinesio tape like all over them. And I'm like, you're like 19. Yeah. Like you should still be at that indestructible phase. But also the flip side of that, right, is like, I don't see that as a limiting thing. It's like, well, this is one more challenging piece. Yeah. Because sometimes I have to remind myself, like, to look back in time a little bit at like, and in rowing, this is really easy because I keep a very detailed training log of everything I did since like 2006. Wow. So I can go back to any given day and just look at what the numbers were on the rowing machine, how I felt about it. Yeah. Who beat me, and sometimes you'll look at the numbers and be like, oh, like that's actually slower than I thought or faster than I thought or whatever. And like, I wouldn't have been able to go, like, part of the reason that I went faster in 2016 in the single than I did in like 2006 or 2008 was because, again, I was sort of approaching it from that mentality of like, just, fight the boat, bash yourself along, do it harder. Yeah. And like you can have, so here's something I just want to share that like only in the past couple of years, it's like, I see the value in both, I guess. And it's a difficult thing because you always wonder, you're like, well, man, what if I had this knowledge with my young body? And it's like, yeah, but that's where we're at now. I wouldn't,
the knowledge might not have meant anything back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, sometimes like the junior crews would be asking me, they'd be like, Dave, what do you do for this workout? What do you do? And I'm like, what I'm doing now because I'm at this point. You're doing what you're doing now, just going like, doing sort of maybe not physiologically the smartest workouts. Like we'll just have you guys do 10 by 3 minutes all out because like, that's what you need right now. And you're not going to hurt yourself, and if you were going to hurt yourself, we wouldn't have you do it. Like I hope that nobody's listening to this think like, oh, well, injury is part of it. It's like, no, injury is not part of it. And just for the record, I never had any injuries all through high school, all through college, up until 3 years out of college when I was finishing grad school. Wow. That's when I had kind of a career, what should have been kind of a rowing career ending disc injury. Yeah. To my lower back.
And it was from rowing?
It was from a lot of, from birth to death, we live our whole lives in the same sort of, in the same skin, right? Yeah. The same bag of electricity and water and whatever else is going on in here. Nobody really knows, by the way.
They don't.
Exactly how exercise works. We don't know. But we got some good guesses. I had just been pushing it hard, trying to get my degree. I had been a little bit overweight, definitely not eating healthy for a lightweight rower. I had cut out a lot of the kind of stretching and core training and sort of sensible strength training that had kept me healthy for so many years. I had not recognized that those were the things keeping me healthy. Right. And at the moment when my back really went, when I had this bulging disc kind of go like that, I had never been stronger on the erg. Like the rowing machine numbers had never been better. But I was also just so tight that like in the boat, I wasn't fast at all. And, my legs were so tight that just a tap on the quads was like, oh my God, it's like waves of electricity, down my leg. So the fascia was just all kinds of locked up, but I didn't have any of even the vocabulary for that. I just, from my point of view at the time, I was like, I'm killing it. Stronger than I've ever been. I'm a little tight. I'm not rowing that great, but whatever. I'm a little overweight, but whatever. And then it was like, oh, there's this pain in my back that like is not going away and is getting worse. And now like I can't move. So it kind of all hit at once. So that was a pretty, that was a hard lesson, because you think you're invincible, and you are, until you're not.
Right.
Like all of a sudden you're not, but it's not like there was just one thing. And I want to really stress that again for anybody that's maybe going through injury or having, maybe you're listening to this right now and like, you're like, man, I'm really at the bottom of my game. My body hurts, whatever. It's like, it's not just one thing. It's going to be a bit of a lifestyle change. It's the reason why right now when we're talking, I'm not sitting in the chair like this, and I don't have my left leg crossed up like I used to all the time, because things like postural habits as you get older are, I can see that you're sitting up pretty straight too, right? Like that's no accident.
Yeah. Standing, actually. I do all these interviews standing, because if I did them sitting, then I would feel like crap by the end of the day. But if I do them standing, it's like hanging out at a party, except sober, having a conversation standing up. I can do that all day. But you're right. It starts to add. If I were slumping like this a little bit, it would be a rough day. Yeah. It'd be a rough life.
Yeah. And just one of the things that again, with the 2020 hindsight. So when I first moved to Boston to start up the grad school program in 2008 out of college, I had made a commitment to myself, like, I'm going to take grad school really seriously, and I'm going to make an attempt to be social and have a social life and make new friends. And I'm going to row, but rowing isn't going to be, I was like, it's fall of 2008. The Olympics just happened. At the time I was thinking like, okay, I'd love to make the Olympics in 2012. That's kind of like a goal, but I just started grad school. That's where the energy and focus has to go. So anyway, I'd had a great summer of rowing, so I wasn't looking to like prove myself at that moment. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the result was like, I fell in with this team out of Riverside Boat Club, coached by Bruce Smith. It was really fun. But he had all these afternoon training workouts, and I was like, I don't have time for that. Like, I'm just rowing once a day. I'm doing a little bit of light lifting, maybe 3 to 6 times a week. But at night, like, there'd be social events. There'd be chances to go out. There'd be chances to dance. There'd be Halloween parties and all this stuff. And I would go out and, at least once a week, maybe twice a week, I would just dance my butt off. And at the time,
talk about hip mobility.
Like, sweaty head to toe, hip mobility, alternating movements, like doing things that are movement based, that have nothing to do with rowing, that have nothing to do with that one repetitive kind of, forward and back, very hard on the back. Yeah. And at the time, like, I just remembered a feeling of skill and tactile sensation and looseness in the boat that was even better than what I'd had in college.
Interesting.
And I didn't, at the time, I think, credit the dancing enough for what that was doing for me. Now, that's why maybe this is a little bit of a funny admission, but it's something that I go out of my way to do now, is to find those opportunities, either to dance, or to move, or to do sort of other stuff that's not just that rowing training. Like even this very weekend, there's a big social dance thing after the Head of the Charles, and went there with a couple friends, and it was kind of like it was probably the first time in a couple of years that I felt like, man, I'm pain free. This is part of the physical therapy, is to dance our butts off a little bit. Well, it
is, yeah. That's cross training, right? People don't, and I didn't either, appreciate the slow training. But like, for example, if you want to play fast on guitar, you have to play slow first. You need to train your nervous system to kind of suppress itself, to clean out all of those like overly aggressive actions, such that when you get out of your own way and dance, you do things that are so fast that you didn't even realize that you could do, because that comes from letting go instead of forcing it harder, right? It comes from letting go. That's where fluidity comes from in movement. You're
completely right. And I I have an aunt. My mom's sister, Amy Ernst, she's a former professional modern dancer and now teaches at the University of Arizona and has for a number of years. She's won all kinds of awards. She has students that go on to do, Broadway and other or professional dance companies. She danced with Bella Lewitsky back in the day. So I've kind of always been around. It runs in the family, maybe. Just kind of. I'm not a good dancer, by the way. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. But I mean, even think back to college. Think back to the Airs. Think back to I'm not gonna say that going to a college party is healthy for you.
Sure.
But if you go and you're not having that much, substances that are bad for you, and you're sort of just there to dance. Like, that's actually a pretty healthy, natural thing to do for your body.
Yeah.
If you're doing it a couple times a week. I mean, even in the Airs, we had some sort of loose choreography. We were on our feet the whole time. You have to have pretty good posture just to produce sound with your voice, to make a good note come out.
It's your instrument.
Totally. And what you said about sort of the proprioceptive skill stuff. So the vast majority of the training that I do in the boat is performed at sort of a very low, mellow pace. And one of my favorite drills that I think anybody who's listening to this, who's rowing, should do is you should work on the top 1 inch of your stroke. Mm-hmm. Like a couple of years ago when I moved out here from Philly or from Boston, I realized the way that I'm moving in the boat, this isn't what I'm going for. So I kind of spent the last years, and I'm still always working on this. You realize I'm sitting up at the front of the stroke. This is where I ideally would want to begin the stroke. But if you really slow it down and look at what your hands are actually doing, I'll demonstrate for us on the video and kind of try to describe it. But you're sitting with your hands spread apart, right? And there's a big difference between coming up and being and sort of doing it this one way, or coming up and being the catch is there. And now I'm beginning. There's a huge difference between that, right? And if you just are always going fast thinking, I got to race, I got to go, I got to do this, I got to beat this other guy, you're not going to get into that very subtle millimeters of movement type thing.
Almost hypnotic and meditative, right?
Oh, completely. So especially when I started, back to the ergatory or doing sort of these longer workouts for that summer, my favorite workout, and it still is to do on the water, is just 20 kilometers. So you get in the boat, you do your technique warm up, you make sure that, in the first 4 or 5 minutes, you're able to move pretty well and you're loose. And that involves doing a little bit of loosening up on land beforehand. But you're out there, you're ready to go. And so you basically just go at 20 strokes a minute, which is a very low, it's about 20 beats below race cadence, or 15. You go out for 10K, you stop, you spin around, you get the water for 5 minutes, and then you just come back. And that's it. It's not a magical thing. And it's long enough where when I'm out there, I don't feel I have a long ways to go. Oh, I'm this and that. I noticed something happen when I kept doing these workouts day after day after day, and just it gradually compressed to where I wasn't thinking ahead or behind. I was just gradually down to thinking about what's going on in this stroke. What's going on for this one stroke. Okay. Now this one stroke. And so eventually you're having fun. It's kind of I would equate it to rowing is like dancing, except there's only one dance move. And you're just trying to perfect it. You're trying to just get it just right. You're trying to do your Michael Jackson thing, but there's just one thing.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. And if you can really get into that, it can be this fun, sustainable thing, and you can be cruising along, breathing and relaxing and doing it just right. And you start to notice these millimeter details that you totally wouldn't if you were got to get my workout in. Where am I? What's my heart rate?
Being in the moment, Eastern again. I can't believe it, but we've already used up all of the time. No. So we're definitely going to have to schedule another one of these. Because, man, there's so much to talk about. I'd love to check in with you after your next few races and all of that. I'm so proud of you, man. But anyway, for those who are listening, where can they find you? What are you working on next? What are you psyched about?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I say if you're going to look at one thing and one thing only, I'm on Instagram at DOS Designs Ltd. So it's DOS Designs Ltd, DOS Designs Limited. And that's where I put all my artwork, which we
haven't even talked about, but it's incredible. You did some of the Airs album artwork yourself and all sorts of. Definitely check out his Instagram.
Oh man, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, well, that's very nice of you to say, but that's kind of how I'm making my way right now. Yeah, I have a blog that more deals with rowing. I actually don't even know the web address of that, but we'll have to put that in the text somewhere.
DavidOSmith17.blogspot.com.
Oh, thanks for knowing it. Yes,
keeping it real with the blog spot. I got it right here.
Yes. And what that is just before, I don't want to run out the clock here, but that is for if you are curious about what am I actually doing training wise. So far we've talked and whatever, but one of the things that I started to do this year was at the end of every week, I just put up exactly what I did.
I've got that right here too. It's awesome. You've got all these Excel charts, it looks like, that are just plastered all over the blog.
There's just very bad screen captures of an Excel doc, of a Google Doc, whatever. Yeah.
I thought you were a designer, Dave.
Hey, they look okay.
They look okay. Well, anyway, Dave, it has been so much fun having you here. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll have to have you on again soon.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me. This was really, really fun. And, best wishes with this. It's so cool to see you out here doing this. This is great.
Oh, well, hi there, listener. This is Abel again. Thanks for hanging on until the end of this episode. As promised, I am attaching a few clips of Dave Smith, this week's guest, and I singing together in college. And maybe I can even include a few songs. It's weird, even though I own the copyright, sometimes the various social media platforms and various places where this video and podcast and audio goes, they'll take down songs for copyright infringement, even though I own the copyrights, and there's nothing I can do about it. So we'll see if this works. Hopefully it does, but I hope you enjoy the tunes. And on behalf of Dave Smith and myself, take that wacky artistic adventure. Go out and dance some night. Have fun. You deserve it. All right. Enjoy the tunes.
Next up, we have a couple of my tunes. This one's called Never Let Her In. It's a little bit more poppy. And after that, we're going to have one called Pretend, which is a little bit less poppy. Good?
With a ghost of love, skin or wax, my tongue is lost, 'cause all I really needed was alone. And she's holding me, but I'm still all by myself inside, 'cause I never let her in. I never let her in. I wasn't like the way I think. I never talk through anything. The ink just flows, but all the words go dry. They're looking in her soft brown eyes. My heart's drafting a eulogy. The irony is thick enough to touch. And she's holding me, but I'm still all by myself inside. 'Cause I never let her in. I never let her in. I never let her in at all. 'Cause I never let her in. I never let her in. I never let her in at all. Cause I never let her in. I never let her in. I never let her in at all. 'Cause I never let her in. I never let her in. I never let her in.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to introduce the band. This is Dave Smith on piano and backup vocals.
This episode is brought to you by Wild Superfoods and listeners like you. Whether you're looking to drop a few pounds, maximize performance for your next competition, or simply stay young and energetic, you need a name you can trust. That's why my wife Allison and I created Wild Superfoods. Our nutraceuticals and cutting-edge health supplements are literally the products we've been taking ourselves daily to upgrade our nutrition and optimize our health for the past 3+ years. And we're extremely excited to say Wild Superfoods is finally ready for you, with much more to come. When you buy from Wild Superfoods, you're supporting a small family business, not a massive faceless corporation. We don't have any investors or stockholders to please, so our priority is you. We want to help you become as healthy as you possibly can be. Also, starting our own family company, it's kind of cool, has made it so we can create these shows for you without outside sponsors clouding our message of health. So if you believe in what we do, please check out Wild Superfoods. We think you'll dig it. And as a listener of Fat Burning Man, you can save over $80 on a one-time purchase or save over $128 when you select the subscribe and save option. Also, you can get free access with subscribe and save to our Fat Burning Tribe coaching and meal planning community. That place is awesome. I'll see you in there. It's usually at least $27 a month. So check out Subscribe and Save from Wild Superfoods if you want to get the tribe for free. We think you'll like it. So all you have to do is head on over to wildsuperfoods.com to order your very own health boosting goodies for a big time discount. One more time, that's wildsuperfoods.com. Thanks again for listening. Well, hey there, listener. This is Abel one more time, and I just want to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Fat Burning Man Show. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you might be listening to or watching this show right now. And if you have a second, please leave me a quick review for the Fat Burning Man Show. I read every single one of them, and every time you leave a review, it gives us a little boost in the rankings, and that helps other people find this show. And if you can think of someone else who might enjoy and benefit from this free show, please take a second to share it with a friend or a family member. And if they're like, what is this Fat Burning Man thing? That's a really silly name. You could be like, you're right, but here's the deal. We've recorded over 250 episodes of the Fat Burning Man Show with thought leaders in health from all over the world. And so far, we've won 4 awards, hitting #1 in health in more than 8 countries internationally. We have more than 30 million downloads already, but we're just getting started. I can't believe any of this, by the way, and couldn't do any of this without you, so thanks once again. But here's some more good news. You can download and listen to every single episode of the Fat Burning Man Show for free with 0 outside advertisements, no outside sponsors, and no corporate overlords. All you have to do is type in fatburningman.com. We'll give you a second here just to type it in, fatburningman.com. And you'll get all the show notes, transcripts, and video and audio versions for all the past episodes of the Fat Burning Man Show for free. Better yet, enter your email at fatburningman.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll even send you a quick start guide so you can take your health into your own hands right now, along with a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes as a special thanks for signing up. Once again, just go to fatburningman.com right now, enter your best email to get your free goodies with a bonus surprise straight to your inbox. This is Abel James signing off. Thank you so much for listening once again, and have a great week.